as General Yakubu Gowon and Dr. Goodluck Jonathan asked leaders at all levels to emulate the spirit of patriotism, unity and oneness as championed by elder statesman Edwin Clark. Labour Party Caretaker Committee sets a panel to probe Julius Abure kicks, orders suspension of Alex Oti, Ireti Kingibe and Nwokocha. Senate passes 2 out of 4 major tax reform bills proposed by President Bola Tinubu, retains VAT at 7.5%. Tensions high as India launches a series of airstrikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. In on business, air cargo demand across Africa, including Nigeria, dropped by 13.4% in March.
On Sports News tonight, the Flying Eagles of Nigeria celebrate their 100th game at the Under-20 African Cup of Nations with a 2-2 draw against Kenya to qualify for the quarter-finals.
And from the nation's capital, federal government signs agreement with the International Fund for Agricultural Development to commit over $158 million to support small-scale farmers in 9 northern states of Nigeria.
Tonight, we begin with what we can term a clarion call from the former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, and former President Goodluck Jonathan to Nigeria's leaders at all levels, urging them to emulate the spirit of patriotism, unity and oneness as exemplified by the life of the late elder statesman, Pa Edwin Clark. The former president who spoke at the memorial lecture and a day of tributes, which marked the beginning of the program of events to lay Pa Edwin Clark to rest, say the task of unifying Nigeria must continue to be at the front burner as divisive tribal rhetorics had recently seen in the country can destroy the nation. Our correspondent Dele Omoyeni reports.
It's a solemn but celebratory mood as Nigerians from all walks of life converge in Abuja to pay tributes to former federal commissioner and elder statesman Pa Edwin Clark.
Chief E.K. Clark.
Former military head of state General Yakubu Gowon leads the line of tributes and calls on all to preach unity and equity as Pa Edwin Clark always did in his lifetime.
All along, he is fighting for a Nigeria that is fair, Nigeria that is justice, Nigeria that is in equity. And this is what he has told us, he's left for us.
Former President Goodluck Jonathan and Mr. Peter Obi have a message for Nigeria's leaders.
If we must, as a nation, go one party, then it must be designed, must be planned by experts, and we know what we are going in for. But if we come through the back door by political manipulations, then we're heading to crisis. So I will advise that probably in a country like Nigeria, it's better we allow the system to stay as it is.
I'm sorry, I'm happy that Gowon is here, and I'm happy that Jonathan is here. But I can tell you, their sacrifice is in vain. They've sacrificed for nothing. I spoke a few days ago and people said I'm marketing Nigeria. When it's true to be the marketer, one bank has just shown that 75% of Nigerians in rural areas are poor. Is one bank marketing Nigeria?
Some associates and his family also pay tributes.
In having this one nation, we must have it in a state of equity, social justice, and egalitarianism. That was why his common slogan was, "We are all Nigerians."
They believe we should stay together, but on the principles of equity, fairness, justice for all Nigerians. On the principles of hard work.
Everybody was your equal. That is the word Kenetaba in Ijo. No head is more important. All heads are equal. So for my father that has passed on, I miss him in the sense that I don't have the person that will say, Rebecca, this is my opinion. What is your opinion?
that might be loved well.
As the final journey home for this pan-Nigerian and eminent leader of the Niger Delta, Pa Edwin Clark, begins, it's the prominent submission of those who give tribute at this event that Nigeria's current leaders must emulate his spirit of justice, sacrifice, courage, and equity for all. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
To politics now. The Nnamdi Usman-led Labour Party Caretaker Committee has set up a panel for the investigation of Mr. Julius Abure for what it describes as his deliberate refusal to stop parading himself as a national chairman of the party and using the party as his personal enterprise to pursue his selfish ambitions. Senator Nnamdi Usman, who briefed the press in Abuja, says that Mr. Abure should have used his office to unify the party, but is now using the office for personal gains and enrichment. The Caretaker Committee has now instructed Mr. Abure to appear before its disciplinary committee immediately to answer pressing questions on various allegations and petitions against him. The Caretaker Committee says that unlike Mr. Abure, who hijacked the party for personal ambitions without due process of ward, local government, state and zonal congresses before a national convention to elect national executives, they are set to follow this due process with a timetable to be released soon.
Pursuant to the powers vested in the National Executive Council under Article 19 of the Labour Party Constitution 1999, as amended, and in response to grave allegations bordering on corruption, financial misappropriation, and anti-party activities leveled against the erstwhile national chairman, Barrister Julius Abure, the leadership of the party hereby constitutes a disciplinary committee to thoroughly investigate the said matters and recommend appropriate disciplinary measures. The composition. Number 1, Senator Ireti Kingibe, the chairman. 2, High Chief Peter Ame, secretary, cum member. Honorable Okejo Onuaka Lucy, member. Ibrahim Abdul Karim, member. Mrs. Maria Lebeke, who was a one-time acting chairman, national chairman of the Labour Party, is also a member. Terms of reference. The committee is hereby mandated to 1. Investigate all allegations of corruption, financial misappropriation, abuse of office and anti-party activities leveled against Barrister Julius Abure during his tenure as national chairman.
In the meantime, the crisis rocking the Labour Party appears to be deepening as the Julius Abure-led party has announced the indefinite suspension of 6 prominent members, including the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, Senators Darlington Wokocha and Ireti Kiningbe, who alleged anti-party activities. Others are Victor Afa Mogene, Amobi Oga and Sheyi Showumi. The party's National Executive Council say the decision followed the recommendations of a 5-man disciplinary committee set up on May the 2nd this year to probe allegations of anti-party conduct. In a statement signed by the National Secretary Umar Ibrahim, the party says a suspension takes immediate effect, barring the affected members from participating in any Labour Party activities. And there's been a major step forward in Nigeria's tax reform journey as the Senate has passed 2 of 4 critical tax bills, pushing forward a sweeping overhaul of the nation's tax administration system. The 2 bills, one seeking to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and another to establish the Joint Revenue Board Bill 2025, along with the Nigeria Revenue Service Bill 2025, were passed following a close-by-close consideration during the Committee of the Whole and their subsequent 3rd reading of the Senate floor.
As lawmakers resume plenary on the 2nd legislative day of the week, the once controversial 4 tax reform bills, which skilled 2nd reading 6 months ago, are back on the floor. Before the commencement of the day's agenda, the Senate President announced yet another defection to the APC.
I write to formally notify the Senate through your esteemed office of my defection from the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, to the All Progressives Congress. I have come to the firm conclusion that continuing my membership with the NNPP would no longer serve the national interest nor the interests of my constituents, which I represent.
Plenary then proceeds with the submission of a report on the 4 tax reform bills, signaling that major hurdles and disputes regarding the bills have been surmounted.
We recommended that A, state governments will have 1, equality, which will carry 50% of that, population carry 20% with that, and place of consumption carry 30%.
However, some of the clauses quickly became a subject of discontent when the Senate dissolved into the Committee of the Whole.
That 3% of the total revenue collected by the service, which shall be appropriated by the National Assembly, subject to the review of the percentage from time to time.
The subject matter is all-encompassing. It involves both oil and non-oil revenue. And what will be accrued to the coffers will be more than the budget of 15, 16, 17 states of the Federation. So for that, let's reduce it to 2%.
The amendment is adopted.
The ayes have it.
Again, another clause ratifying legislative involvement in the financial approvals and VAT disbursement is debated.
I thought that once we legislate the broad terms of distribution of VAT, that is okay for us. Not to go down to determine what they do and where they how do they apply it based on we're creating confusion. That's my worry.
So the objection is noted.
The lawmakers subsequently expunged the contentious clauses, including a proposal to increase the value-added tax to 10%, opting to retain the current rate at 7.5%. The Senate also introduced stringent penalties for tax-related offences, including fines for failure to register or file returns, as well as imprisonment of up to 3 years for serious violations. The Senate eventually passed 2 of the 4 major tax reform bills. The Senate agreed that the remaining 2 bills will be finalised on Wednesday. The Senate President has now assured that any other contentious aspect of the bill will be addressed through a conference committee with the House of Representatives to ensure harmonization before the bills are transmitted to the President, Bola Tinubu, for assent. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television. Now, there is a strong call from the House of Representatives as lawmakers are asking the federal government to make cancer screening free for all Nigerians. This appeal follows a motion highlighting the urgent need to subsidize the rising cost of cancer treatment across Nigeria. Leading the charge, Representative Aderemi Oseni raised alarm over the growing cancer crisis, citing reports that in 2020 alone, over 125,000 Nigerians were diagnosed with the disease. The House says there's time to act, calling for immediate measures to ease the burden on patients and save lives.
Cancer is a major public health challenge in Nigeria, with many patients unable to afford treatment due to high costs. Further note, the scourge of cancer is fast spreading among Nigerians, with reports revealing that in 2020, about 125,000 people were diagnosed with cancer. The most common types of cancer is breast cancer, prostate cancer, and cervical cancer as well. Worried that the cost of cancer treatment varies from 10 million naira, which is about $10,000, to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Mr. Speaker, to stop that the rising burden of cancer is causing a shortage of funding for cancer control diseases, with public financing being considered the most appropriate, sustainable, and equitable solution to fund that aspect of healthcare to ameliorate suffering of patients with cancer.
In part 2, after the break, Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru presents scorecards as several ongoing military operations to address the insecurity in the country is yielding results. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. 2 former Nigerian leaders, General Yakubu Gowon and Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, asked leaders at all levels to emulate the spirit of patriotism, unity and oneness as championed by elder statesman Edwin Clark. Labour Party Caretaker Committee sets a panel to probe Julius Abure. Abure kicks orders suspension of Alex Oti, Ireti Kingibe and Nwokocha. Senate passes 2 out of 4 major tax reform bills proposed by President Bola Tinubu, retains VAT at 7.5%. Tensions high as India launches series of airstrikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The United States National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, has concluded that the helicopter crash, which claimed the lives of former Access Holdings CEO Herbert Wigwe, his wife, son, and 3 others in February 2024, was caused by pilot error stemming from special disorientation. In its final report released today, the NTSB says the accident occurred after the pilot continued flying under Visual Flight Rules VFR into weather conditions that required instrument flight protocols. That report cites the pilot's decision to continue the Visual Flight Rules flight into instrument meteorological conditions, which resulted in the pilot's special disorientation and loss of control, was a probable cause. The report also placed significant blame on the helicopter company, criticizing its safety oversight. It stated the operator had demonstrated inadequate oversight over its safety management processes, especially regarding flight risk assessments, maintenance issue documentation, and pre-departure compliance with aviation regulations. The crash occurred near the California-Nevada border on February the 8th, 2024. All 6 occupants of the helicopter registered as N130CZ died in the incident. Alongside Mr. Wigwe, the victims included his wife Doreen, their son Chizi, and Abimbola Ogunbanja, who is the former group chairman of the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. To the courts now. The trial of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, resumed today before Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, with the prosecution continuing its presentation of evidence in support of terrorism-related charges against Mr. Kanu. At the day's proceedings, the court admitted several exhibits, including letters, statements, and video materials set to contain broadcasts by Mr. Kanu inciting violence against the Nigerian state, and video clips announcing the creation of the Eastern Security Network and ordering a lockdown in the southeastern region. The prosecution's witness, who continued his testimony, presented a letter purportedly from the office of the then Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, addressed to the Department of State Service, which contained complaints against Mr. Kanu for alleged acts of terrorism, murder, and incitement of attacks against security operatives and prominent Nigerians. Our correspondent Manuela Ekele reports.
The leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, arrives to Federal High Court Abuja for the continuation of his trial. He is received by his family and legal team. As the resumed hearing, the second prosecution witness reads out portions of a letter purportedly from the office of the then Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, addressed to the Department of State Service, which contained complaints against Kanu for alleged acts of terrorism, murder, and incitement of attacks against security operatives and prominent Nigerians. The portion of the letter stated that Kanu, through various broadcasts, incited violence by instructing followers to attack police and military officers, seize their weapons, and burn down government institutions. According to the letter, these alleged directives had led to the killing of security personnel and destruction of public infrastructure. The prosecution also tendered a written statement said to have been made by Mr. Kanu during interrogation by the DSS, which was admitted without objection by the defense. In the statement, Kanu declined to make further comments, stating that he had said all he wanted to say. Subsequently, the court admitted into evidence a flash drive containing video clips of the defendant's alleged broadcast. Despite initial objections by the defense counsel, the court accepted the device along with a certificate of compliance. During the court session, a video was played showing Mr. Kanu in a December 12, 2020 broadcast declaring, and I quote, "In the blessed land of Biafra, we must do everything to save ourselves from extinction," end of quote. In the video, he described Nigeria as a zoo and called for resistance against what he termed Fulani domination, accusing political leaders of betraying the people. In another video, Mr. Kanu introduced the Eastern Security Network, ESN, comparing it to a regional security outfit like Amotekun, and said it was necessary to defend the southeast from Fulani herders. He warned that no Fulani headsman will be allowed in the region. The court also viewed the footage from the NSAS protest, where Mr. Kanu was seen allegedly directing attacks on police and government properties. A separate video dated May 30, 2021 showed Mr. Kanu declaring a total lockdown in the southeast in memory of fallen Biafrans, instructing residents not to leave their homes. Another clip reportedly showed Kanu urging his followers to procure guns and bullets for self-defense, referencing threats from Boko Haram and labeling Fulani herders as terrorists. The witness confirmed the voice in the videos as Mr. Kanu's. Additionally, the federal government's gazette officially prescribing IPOB as a terrorist organization, dated December 20, was admitted as an exhibit without objection from the defense. Counsel for the prosecution, Adegboyega Awomolo, requested an adjournment to continue playing the remaining footage, stating that it exceeded an hour. The defense team raised no objections, and the trial judge, Justice James Omotosho, subsequently adjourned the case to May 8th for continuation of hearing. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And now an update on national security. The federal government says that progress has been made in the fight against terrorism and criminal activities across the country. According to the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badaru, over 13,000 terrorists and criminals have been neutralized by the military forces in the past 2 years, thanks to intensified operations and joint efforts. He made this known at the interministerial press briefing in Abuja. Meanwhile, the Minister of Information and National Orientation is asking media professionals to act responsibly in their reportage, cautioning against giving undue attention to terrorist groups and criminal elements seeking publicity.
It is the routine ministerial press briefing at the National Press Center in Abuja, and the Minister of Defense and his colleague at the Ministry of Environment are on ground to account for their stewardship. The Minister of Defense provides an overview of military operations since 2023, highlighting the gains made against terrorists and other criminal elements.
Our intensified operation in the northeast, particularly through collaboration with the multinational joint task force, have significantly weakened Boko Haram and ISWAP. From May 2023 to February 2025, our troops have neutralized 13,543 terrorists and criminals. Arrested 17,469 and rescued 9,821 hostages. Meanwhile, 124,408 Boko Haram/ISWAP terrorist combatant fighters and their families surrendered.
However, the Minister of Information and National Orientation is seeking the cooperation of media professionals in their reportage of terrorist activities.
The media, as gatekeepers and partners in nation building, have a crucial role to play in supporting our military's morale by highlighting their successes and sacrifices. I therefore call on my colleagues, our media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. Honorable Minister.
The Minister of Environment also addressed the gathering, highlighting its achievements, which includes improved forest security and conservation.
We have restored a number of forests. About 80 hectares of degraded landscape have been restored, and we are doing more in trying to bring them back to rotation. And as part of that, we have signed an agreement to join the Middle East Green Initiative, which offers opportunities for environmental conservation and renewable energy.
The interministerial press briefing is the brainchild of the Minister of Information and National Orientation, which provides a platform for ministers to bring citizens up to speed with happenings in their ministries.
All eyes are on Anambra State as it gears up to welcome President Bola Tinubu tomorrow, May 8, 2025, in what promises to be a landmark visit. The president is expected to commission key projects, including the Solution Fund City and the long-awaited new government house, milestones that highlight Governor Chukwuma Soludo's transformative leadership. The visit will also feature a town hall meeting with key stakeholders. With final preparations underway, the state government says that security and logistics are in place for a smooth event. Meanwhile, officials are advising road users to take alternative routes as excitement builds across Anambra State. Still ahead on the news at 10. Air cargo demand across Africa, including Nigeria, drops by 13.4% in the month of March 2025. That's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. It's still the news at 10 on Channels Television. We head over to Abuja studios now, where Terry Ikumi is standing by to bring us more stories. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Anne. The federal government has signed an agreement with the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, to commit over $158 million to support small-scale farmers in 9 northern states of Nigeria. The agreement was signed at the State House at a meeting presided over by Vice President Kashim Shettima. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
This meeting with Vice President Kashim Shettima is for the signing of an agreement between the federal government and the International Fund for Agricultural Development. Witnessed by some state governors and deputy governors, the agreement is aimed at scaling up the value chain in the agriculture sector, particularly for smallholder farmers in 9 states across the northern region.
Our key targets include reducing the prevalence of severe food insecurity in targeted population to 18% during the project period, enabling 9,000 youth, women, and IDP returnees to establish formal agro-businesses along selected value chains.
Vice President Shettima underscores the importance of the initiative in addressing issues of poverty, unemployment, and hunger in the benefiting states.
This reflects President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's commitment to prioritizing what matters most: people, productivity, and prosperity. The value chain program for northern Nigeria is anchored on 3 pillars: climate resilient agriculture, inclusive value chains, and accountable governance.
He also assures of the commitment of President Bola Tinubu to the project.
The President is fully on board. He is fully committed to this project and has given his word that the counterpart funding of $30 million will be paid by the federal government in the coming weeks.
With that, pens are put to paper as a demonstration of the commitment of the federal government and IFAD to the agreement. IFAD says it is also willing to commit more funds to support farmers in Nigeria, just as the state governments laud the initiative.
If the program starts and is working well, IFAD will look into the possibility of adding more money.
We will commit ourselves to it and make sure that it gives the benefit that is required in the country.
The active portfolio of the International Fund for Agricultural Development in Nigeria stands at about $1.1 billion, providing services to over 800,000 people. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo is calling for better resource management across Africa, saying the continent's biggest challenge isn't a lack of funds, but the failure to effectively harness them. According to him, the money to develop Africa is right here in Africa. He made the remarks during the commissioning and tour of Aba Power's new 2x15 MVA Ogbo Hill substation in Aba, Abia State, urging leaders to make strategic use of available resources to tackle the continent's pressing issues.
As part of activities lined up for the official commissioning and tour of Aba Power's new 2x15 MVA Ogbo Hill substation, Nigeria's former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, is in Aba, the commercial nerve center of Abia State.
Yes, they are the ones that the operation and maintenance.
The name of the Father, of the Son.
With the official cutting of tape of the substation, an additional capacity to the existing megawatt, he proceeds on a tour of the geometric power headquarters and meter rollout facility in Osisioma local government area.
We have this example. We have other examples that we can. But we also have examples that are open. Let us show the ones that are beautiful. Let us not hide the ones that are ugly. Let us make the world know that we are doing something about the ones that are ugly. Nigeria will be fully industrialized. Nigeria will be an industrialized nation. And I believe this is one thing that we can take the lesson from here and we can make it to go round the state. And the experience that you have, others don't need to make the same mistake because they can learn from you, you can tell them, you can see what they.
The governor, Alex Oti, highlights his administration's commitment to improving power supply, saying that Abia State is on the verge of signing a memorandum of understanding with Geometric Power Aba to distribute excess electricity generated by the plant to Umuahia.
Our inability to generate employment, to reduce poverty level, you can trace all of them to epileptic power supply. And as a government, we are determined to solve that problem. I want to use the same opportunity to thank Geometric staff, management, board for this investment here and for remaining here and for supporting us. And I can assure you that this government will continue to give you maximum support.
Only a leader with Chief Obasanjo's foresight and patriotism would permit the creation of the Aba-ring-fenced area for this pilot project as part of his plan for the power sector reform program, which he initiated as a way to revitalize and sustain Nigeria's economy.
Residents are optimistic that the commissioning of the Ogbo Hill substation will enhance power generation and distribution to homes, businesses and institutions in 9 out of 17 local government areas of Abia State.
A letter from the nation's capital. Business News is next with Willie Bonk.
Thank you, Terry. We kick off with the aviation space. Air cargo demand across Africa, including Nigeria, dropped by 13.4% in March 2025, the steepest decline worldwide, according to new data from the International Air Transport Association, IATA. Yet, cargo capacity in the region grew by 10.5% year-on-year,
In contrast, global demand rose 4.4%, driven by strong performance in Asia-Pacific and North America. Europe also recorded growth, while the Middle East saw a slight drop. IATA links the global rise to early shipments ahead of U.S. tariff hikes. Falling fuel prices and modest global trade growth also helped boost overall volumes. Still within the aviation space now, narrowing down to Nigeria, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has penalized Kenya Airways for breaching passenger rights. The airline has been given 7 days to refund and compensate Nigerian travelers affected by recent service failures. The sanctions follow complaints from passengers, including Gloria Omishore, who went viral after confronting airline staff over poor treatment. Offenses listed include lack of care, delayed refunds, and lost baggage. The NCAA warns that Kenya Airways will face tougher penalties if it fails to meet the deadline as the regulator moves to uphold consumer protection rules in the aviation sector. And from there, we head to the domestic equities market, which continued its bullish run today, notching 3 straight days of gains. Here's Laddie Williams with the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, we see after the strong rally yesterday, that continues today with the all-share index knocking at that 109K level, 0.59% up. That's what we have for today at the close of trade. Then we see trading activity is strong with investor appetite, high. We see volume and value of trades rising there. And we also see, 587 million units of stocks that was traded, much more than yesterday, valued at 18.65 billion. Just less deals compared to yesterday. To the sectoral performance, banking counter, consumer goods, they continue the party up over 2% apiece. Just oil and gas counter as a laggard today. So about 200 points more to get to that 109,000 level. Let's see what tomorrow brings.
Of course, Laddie, it's still raining dividends. But let's check out the closing numbers for other major stock markets around the world. And that's business news. It's back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Will. And still to come on the news at 10, tensions high as India launches a series of airstrikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Please join us again. Truce. Welcome back. Outside our shores, black smoke has been seen from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, where 133 cardinals have been locked in until they elect a new pope, meaning that a new pope has not been elected yet. Here's Simon Puse with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Tensions are running high since India launched a series of airstrikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir in what it said was retaliation for a deadly militant attack. India claims it successfully targeted 9 sites, which it described as terrorist infrastructure. But Pakistan has rejected India's claims of terrorist camps on its soil, reiterating the allegations are baseless. It said that 6 locations were targeted and claimed to have shot down 5 Indian fighter jets. Pakistan has also vowed to respond in kind to the attacks. Mark Carney has told Donald Trump that Canada is not for sale as the president raised the prospect of the country becoming the 51st U.S. state once again, while welcoming the Prime Minister to the White House. Mr. Carney won the Canadian election last month, promising to stand up to Mr. Trump. The former central banker responded with a firm but measured tone after the president proposed a wonderful marriage of incorporating Canada into the U.S.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden has said pressure from the Trump administration on Ukraine to give up territory to Russia is modern-day appeasement. In his first interview since leaving the White House, Mr. Biden, who spoke as allied nations marked the 80th anniversary of VE Day, said he was concerned about U.S.-Europe relations breaking down under President Donald Trump, which he said would change the modern history of the world.
Listen to what Putin said when he talked about going from Kyiv into Ukraine. And why? He can't stand the fact that the Russian dictatorship that he runs, that the Soviet Union has collapsed. And anybody thinks he's going to stop is just foolish.
Sudan has cut diplomatic ties with the United Arab Emirates after repeatedly accusing the Gulf nation of backing the rival Rapid Support Forces in the country's civil war. The announcement came as the RSF were blamed for attacks on the usually safe city of Port Sudan, which started on Sunday and have continued until Wednesday. The UAE has repeatedly denied allegations that it is giving financial, military and political support to the paramilitary force. A Kenyan court has sentenced 4 men to 1 year in prison or a fine of $7,700 for trying to smuggle thousands of live ants out of the country. The 4 suspects, 2 Belgians, a Vietnamese and a Kenyan, were arrested last month with 5,000 ants. They had pleaded guilty to the charges and told the court that they were collecting the highly sought-after ants as a hobby and didn't think it was illegal. But delivering the sentence on Wednesday, the court said the particular species of ants collected was valuable. It is believed that the ants were intended for exotic pet markets in Europe and Asia. And Prince Louis has been going viral online after videos of him at the VE Day flypast celebrations were shared. In one, he is seen helping keep his father, Prince William, looking smart for the parade. In another, he is seen mocking his older brother George by sweeping back his hair. The royal family were at the heart of commemorations to mark 80 years since the end of World War II in Europe.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. Paris Saint-Germain are in the final of the UEFA Champions League following a 2-1 win over Arsenal in the second leg semi-final in Paris. Fabian Ruiz gave the hosts the lead in the 21st minute, while Achraf Hakimi doubled the lead in the 72nd minute before Bukayo Saka pulled one back for Arsenal. Having won the first leg by a lone goal, PSG progressed 3-1 on aggregate for date with Inter Milan on May 30th in Munich. Nigeria's Flying Eagles are in the quarterfinals of the Under-20 African Cup of Nations in Egypt after a 2-2 draw against Kenya's Rising Stars in the last match of Group B. Kenya made the game difficult for the Flying Eagles as they had to come from behind twice to salvage the encounter. The draw ensured Nigeria finished second in the group with 5 points, while Kenya got a point to remain at the bottom.
He's never scored for the under-20s, but he has now. Olise. Oh, really good strength. Arieri across. That was looping, but Kenya have earned their first point.
In the President Federation Cup, Edo Queens and Nasarawa Masons will battle for the final ticket after reaching the semi-finals. Edo Queens advanced after edging Unification FC 1-0, while Nasarawa Masons thumped Sunshine Queens. Rivers Angels and Ibom Angels will contest the other semi-finals. Rivers Angels defeated Remo Ladies 3-1 on penalty, while Ibom Angels also progressed, beating Heartland Queens 4-3 on penalties. And Manchester United manager Ruben Amorim says nothing will change if he wins the Europa League with the worst team in Premier League history. United are currently 15th in the 20-team table and now have 1 point in the final after a 3-0 semi-final first leg win against Atletico Bilbao last week ahead of Thursday's return encounter at Old Trafford.
Premier League, I think we are the worst. Since I arrived, we are the worst team in terms of the results in Premier League. That is my idea. In the end of this season, we can be the worst team in Premier League in history with a European title. So we will not change nothing. We know that this season was really disappointed for everybody.
FIFA head of global development Arsene Wenger has proposed a change to the offside rule that would mean attackers are onside if any part of the body is in line with the last outfield defender. Wenger said it would restore an advantage to the attacker that many feel was eroded by the introduction of VAR. And that sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Two former Nigerian leaders, General Yakubu Gowon and Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, today asked leaders at all levels to emulate the spirit of patriotism, unity and oneness as championed by elder statesman Edwin Clark. The two former leaders made the comments at the memorial lecture and a day of tributes for the former Commissioner for Information. Also today, the Labour Party Caretaker Committee set up a panel to probe Julius Abure, just as the Abure-led group wielded the big stick by suspending the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, Ireti Kingibe, and Nwakocha. The Senate has passed 2 out of 4 major tax reform bills proposed by President Bola Tinubu, just as the lawmakers retain VAT at 7.5%. And tensions have escalated between India and Pakistan over the launch of a series of airstrikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful night rest and stay safe.